In this video, I'm going to follow on from a model making project we completed earlier, and this is all about communicating your design ideas, developing your sketching ability, improving your ability to sketch in accurate 3 dimensions, and to sort of generally just get your design communication skills up to a really good standard whilst we have the opportunity. So we're going to do this 2-point perspective. It's got 2 vanishing points, 2-point perspective drawing of a phone holder, which you may or may not have completed with me as part of the model making process. So this is a follow-on activity, but it can be done as a standalone activity. What I've decided to do on this drawing is to make it so that we're looking to give us a bit of a dynamic view. We're looking both down and up at the object. It's kind of like a human eye view on a building, if you like. And by playing with where your vanishing points are and your eye level line, you can achieve quite dramatic effect. So I'm going to give you some measurement today so that we're able to follow along with each other. And then your extension activity will be to do a couple of sketches elsewhere on your page, trying to apply the skills that I've shown you, very much led by me. Okay, so our starting point, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring our 2 vanishing points down the page, and they are down at 70 mil. And then we're going to measure in from the left to here to a 110 mil. Okay, so that's our kind of key measurements. Let's get organised. Okay, so step 1 and 2 are to get our vanishing points in position. Now, if you put these in the wrong spot, this process won't work. So it is worth getting these accurate. Okay, so I'm going to call that one VP2, and I'm going to call that one VP1, vanishing point 1, vanishing point 2. They're right at the edges of the page. I'm working on A4 paper. This would sort of work on any size piece of paper, but obviously if you're following my measurements, it might look slightly different. But let's just see where we come to. Right, so I said along the bottom we were going to measure 110 mil, that's 11 centimeters, so I might as well do the same at the top, just to give us a vertical line. Now, if you've followed my drawing tutorials before, you'll know that I'm very often talking about construction lines, which are as light as you can possibly make them. If I'm drawing a bit dark, it's so that you can see it. So there's my first line, and that actually forms. If you look at this object, it's a process known as crating, where you form the box sort of within a cuboid. I want this front corner to be in the right spot, and I'm going to form that box, and I can measure along this line, etc. So what we're going to do now is we're going to measure. So now the bit that I need to measure isn't there. We're going to measure up that line to create our first base corner by 4 centimeters, 40 millimeters. All right, so that's there. There's my 4. There's my first mark. Now, if you get these first ones right, it makes the rest of the drawing go much more easily. Okay, so construction line, nice and lightly off to the vanishing point. If your pencil's a bit blunt whilst you're looking at your lines, now's your moment, go and sharpen it, make sure you're working sharp. So I've gone from that corner to each of those 2 vanishing points. And what we'll do is we'll do this construction line to give us a vertical line. So again, often I'll say things like verticals are vertical. In this case, we're going to do a line straight up the page. I'm coming down, coming along from there, that's 0 to 10. Okay, so that's 100 mil, and I'm going to draw straight up the page, making sure that I'm parallel with my lines. My verticals are vertical. Nice light construction line. Okay, now when you look at this, I'm measuring with you. I actually sketched this by hand first of all. You'll see kind of the remnants of that. So although I'm being very precise and it's taking ages for you guys, once you get fluid with this and a bit confident, you can kind of put things in proportionally by eye. without all this measurement necessarily. Okay, so don't be put off perspective by the fact that I'm talking a lot at you, because when we come to doing it, or when you're doing your own, you don't necessarily need to spend as long getting this right. Okay, so let's measure up that line. I was just measuring my drawing then. We're going to measure up 95. Look at that, 9.5 centimeters, 95. Now hopefully, if my measuring's right, oh, it's not quite there. That brings us up towards that corner. I've slightly dodged it there. Look at that. I'm off by a millimetre or so. It was getting a bit high for my liking, so somewhere on my page I've gone a little bit high. Okay. Anyway, so I've gone from VP2 through my 95 line, off the edge of the page, and what I'm now going to do is measure up that line from that corner 25 mil. Okay, there we go. Now that's a line we're going to come back to. Right, so again, what we've got there's our line. We've gone off there. We've now created this point on the drawing. So we're going to come back now and we're going to construct this bit and join them up, because at the moment, because I'm in perspective, I can't plot this back. So I need to know where this comes to. So I'm going to start working up this line here, plot back to my vanishing point and create that step. So here come a couple more measurements. Okay, so just doing some measurement there. So I'm coming up 40, from there up 40. Okay, I'm going to go back to the vanishing point with a construction line, and I'm going to go back to that vanishing point with a construction line. So I'm going to both VP1 and VP2. Okay, so I've now gone here and I've gone off there. Next step is going to be, looking at that, that's 25 mil. Okay, so that measurement there, I do quite big dots so that you can see them. They don't need to be these great big chunks like an ant's been squashed on the page. So I'm doing 25 and then I'm going off to VP1. Okay, so there's my front corner, top edge. So if you look at it as the object, we're doing, that's the front corner, that's the top edge. We're now going to do this step in here. Okay, now I'm going to come down and I'll measure my so from this corner I'm coming down 15. Remember, verticals are vertical, so I get that right. That's my 15 mark, and then from that one a construction line off to the vanishing point. So when we're doing these perspective drawings, you look at the view that gives you the most information, or the most important views, and then you can kind of plot from those. So if I'm sketching this, it was working out where this groove came that tells me where the back side is, but this is the one that is easiest to plot first. So I'm about to do this line here now. So from that corner, we're going to measure 20 millimeters, 2 centimeters. Okay, there's my 2 centimeters. And if you remember what I was saying about how that gives us, that plots us a part of it, it's this part of our object now. And I plot up. Right, so I've basically got that whole side now drawn here. And you can see the effect, particularly when it's not a 3D object yet, you can really see the effect of the perspective. You can see it's kind of, looks like there's angles going everywhere. And they kind of are, I suppose, because the one that really throws your eye out is the fact that that isn't a vertical surface there, it's actually leaning back. And that then meets a bit that we're looking up at. So remember, this is kind of like a person looking up at a building sort of view. So you've got that change of angle there. So that looks a little bit strange at the moment. It's about to turn into a really cool object there. So I'm now going to measure along this line 5 centimeters from that point there back to VP1, 5 centimeters, 50 mil, 50. Make that little mark. Okay, and this is one of those moments where I say my verticals are vertical, those two lines are parallel. So I'll plot that there. From that 50 mil. And now this one goes off to VP2. Top of that line to that vanishing point. Okay, so that now gives me this surface. There. All right. So we've got to work out whether or not we're going to see this channel in a minute, and I have a feeling we don't on this drawing. But we'll come to that in a second. So we're going to measure now to give it the back edge. We're going to show this back edge here. All right. We go from this top corner. We're going to go to VP1, construction line. Okay, so if we look at this profile, we're going to have to do, it depends on how technical we want to get here. Look, I've got to do this bottom surface off to that vanishing point. It's actually going to, on this drawing, I'm slightly different to my original drawing. On this one, I'm going to hit this area here if I go to VP1. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to stop it when I meet that line. Now that leaves us in a bit of a challenge, because I need to know where this bit of floor comes. This is the hardest bit of the drawing we're about to do. This is kind of like the crux point where you've got to rely on the rules of perspective and measurement. So the only way we can work out where this finishes is by thinking about this corner here. If this was a transparent box or an icy box, that corner would be seen in there. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to just plot that. It's a vertical line, so verticals remain vertical. This is a construction line. So that would be the back edge, almost like the front edge of that. That's the back edge there. And so to know where that comes to, we can use this corner here and go to that vanishing point and see where it crosses that. Now you might find that it comes in line with some of these other lines, but that doesn't matter, that's irrelevant, providing that goes to there, where it touches that line is correct. Right, now we don't really need very much here. We almost don't need to draw a line. It's just about that point. Right, so on mine, that's there. Where that line meets this line, I end up with this point. Okay, I've moved it down slightly so you can see it. Meets that point. So now what I've got to do is I've got to go from that point, in the same way as I go from that point to the vanishing point, I go from that point to the vanishing point. Tricky bit. Ready for it? So from that point to that vanishing point, it's a construction line. Here, here. Right, I'm going quite lightly. That line there goes off to that vanishing point. So where does it stop? Right, think about the front profile here. That front profile is mirrored at the back. Goes from here, off here. So the way we can tell where that corner is on the back edge of it is by continuing this line off to that vanishing point, and where it touches there, that is that corner, but on the back surface. So that's that corner there as a continuation of this one. Okay, all of that is hidden in here. It's all hidden behind this front block. But it's important because now, if I do a line parallel with that one, so I'm looking at those two lines parallel, that gives me, going to that corner, that gives me this profile. Okay. So if I just darken that in, you will probably see that a little bit. So just a reminder, that profile there has just been duplicated here, but this block is not transparent. So if I just darken my edges in, you'll see the object a little bit more clearly. So we darken in the keepers. Okay, and then the final line that will sort of bring it together is this one here. So that's the line that's parallel with that. It starts on this line here, comes down to that point that we plotted. Okay, and then I'm just going to darken in my top line. So this is an activity where you're following me. If it doesn't go right first time, have another go, because you know, in preparing this session for you, I've probably done this, I've certainly sketched it once. So I think if you're going, well, that's really difficult, it isn't working for me, have another go. Don't give up. But if you look at the difference, a slight variation on the position of that point, I think has meant that we don't actually see this, we don't really see this base in as much detail, but you can see where I plotted it in there. We don't see that base because of a slight change of position, which is all right. It's not the end of the world, because each time you draw it's going to come out slightly differently. At first, if you're working with a non-measured object. Right, so your challenge is to do this now. I want you to try, you can either do it freehand or you can do it with rulers, try and create another 2-point perspective object. The real trick to this, get your 2 vanishing points level, so horizontally level. And really, for some of you, this shouldn't be the end of the world doing that. So there's my 2 vanishing points. There's 1, there's 2. If I do a front corner and then draw to those points, looking at my drawing up here, just see what I end up with. And at first you kind of go, whoa, that's looking a bit nuts, but actually if you sort of plot onto it and into it, before you know it, so there's a vertical that's vertical, plot off to the vanishing point, make a decision. There we go. I was feeling a little bit nervous about that for a minute there because I've got such extreme perspective. But now that I've got that front face plotted in, I go to each of those points, and then parallel with that, I'm going to come down. In this case, look, that one goes there. This one slightly make up where that goes. So there's my object in perspective. Reasonably quick sketching. What's that taking me? 2 minutes maybe? Slightly wobbly lines, but that's okay. You know, if you're designing a building or you're designing a piece of furniture, you want to spend a couple of minutes drawing an object and working out where things go. I might decide to make that as a hollow object by drawing a profile around it. Very similar to something we've done in class, this. Providing I go to that vanishing point there, that's now become a hollow shape, so you can see quite quickly and easily you can turn a design into something really quite special just by thinking about vanishing points and making little adaptations. So your challenge really is A, to do your perspective drawing that I've created there, but B, I want to see how you can apply that understanding and try and do some perspective drawings at the bottom. If you find this difficult, that isn't a sign that you stop doing it. It's a sign that you have another watch of the video at your own pace, you pause it and you have another go, because the expectation for submission is one block model and one perspective drawing. Yeah, it's quite tough for some people, but you're expected to give it a couple of goes. All right, so I'm expecting to have two submissions. One is the block model, one is the perspective drawing. Good luck with that. I'm sure you can do it. Well done.